If you think that trans women are not women, it will be a violation of women's rights.
Trans women are absolutely not women. And that's why we're playing the crazy game right now. I won't play it. I will not address a man that is an address. You can play Halloween. You can put lipstick on a pig. It is still a pig, and it is just Halloween.
In this explosive clip, Candace Owens tears into Democratic hypocrisy, targeting everything from Kamala Harris's pro-woman stance to the controversial trans rights debate, and even calling out celebrity figures like LeBron James and Barack Obama. Owens doesn't pull any punches as she critiques racial identity politics, the abortion debate, and the state of the Democratic platform.
The celebrity endorsements really hurt them this time around. It felt very cheesy, especially because she wasn't voted for, right? So she had 107 days. She didn't even campaign. They just kind of, it was a coronation more than anything else. I think ultimately they insulted a lot of their voters. It's fundamentally just not educated to vote for someone and say, well, this person looks like me, so that means that they have my best interests at heart. I just think it's the most uneducated thing you could possibly do.
Candace makes a sharp critique when she describes voting for someone purely because they share the same race or gender as the most uneducated thing you could possibly do. Her argument hits a nerve by addressing the assumption that representation equals advocacy. Candace's point shines when she calls for voters to prioritize policies over appearances. It's a valid critique of identity politics, which can sometimes reduce voters to demographic checkboxes rather than treating them as individuals with diverse needs. By framing the issue this way, Candace appeals to anyone frustrated by performative politics or symbolic gestures that lack tangible results.
But the reality is even that fundamentally makes no sense. LeBron James, just because he is Black, is not living the Black experience of somebody who might be living on the South Side of Chicago. It was offensive, an offensive level of propaganda. It does resonate as insulting.
For better or worse, celebrity endorsements have a significant, sometimes polarizing, impact on elections. High-profile endorsements can bring massive visibility, energize voter bases, and sway undecided voters. There's both positive and negative impacts. Negative impacts include perceived elitism. Critics often argue that celebrity endorsements can alienate working-class voters, especially if the endorser appears out of touch with everyday struggles, which is what Candace really hits on. Polarization. Celebrities often bring their controversies into the political sphere, which can backfire if voters see them as hypocritical or overly partisan. Finally, overshadowing candidates. There's also the risk that the celebrity becomes the focal point rather than the candidate or their policies.
It's sort of interesting that Trump's
He
whole
doesn't.
candidacy, his whole campaign has been based on saying, look, his whole candidacy is saying, his whole campaign has said, I know what is best to heal America.
First and foremost, Trump has never tried to say, I am a blue collar worker. So that's just completely wrong. Trump says, I'm rich. I run a
No, okay.
company. I can help you get rich. He literally makes jokes about the fact that he's rich when he's at these events and he's tossing jokes about, I'm a billionaire. I've done this. And that's fine. And the last thing I'll say is that I found it to be really alarming and borderline satanic in the manner that they ran to women and said, well, this is the election that hinges upon abortion. It wasn't like, the typical, we are pro-choice and you are pro-life. They essentially were coming to women and their only basis for saying to vote for her is, well, I think it was a big mistake to hinge an entire abortion.
Candace critiques the Democratic Party's focus on abortion as a primary issue in the election, arguing that they went beyond a pro-choice stance to a pro-death narrative. She suggests that this extreme positioning alienated many voters, including those who might generally support abortion rights, but were uncomfortable with its centralization in the campaign. What are the strengths in Candace's argument? 1. Overemphasis on abortion. Owens highlights a valid critique. Hyper-focusing on abortion can alienate voters who prioritize other issues like the economy, crime, or border security. Her point reflects the broader frustration among moderates who may see abortion as just one of many important topics rather than a singular campaign-defining issue. And 2, radical framing. By positioning abortion as a pro-death movement, Owens taps into a conservative perception that the Democrats have lost touch with mainstream values on the issue. This rhetoric resonates strongly with pro-life voters who feel their perspective is marginalized.
I mean, the whole thing was grotesque. I don't know how the Democrats could consistently say to women, we are here for protecting women's rights, when at the same time they're advocating a direct attack on women's rights.
Right. I just wanted to add here, like, just to say where we do actually differentiate, like, trans women are absolutely not women. And that's why we're playing the crazy game right now, is because we have people that are trying to parse reality and say, well, I believe trans women are women. I am a woman. And no matter how you feel on the inside, you can play Halloween, you can put lipstick on a pig. It is still a pig, and it is just Halloween. I am sorry that you are suffering from a mental disorder.
Candace takes on trans women is unapologetically blunt, rooted in her assertion that trans women are absolutely not women, and that gender dysphoria constitutes a mental disorder. She refuses to engage with the concept of gender identity as separate from biological sex. Strengths of her argument. 2 main things: consistency and logic. Candace takes a firm, clear stance that biological realities should dictate policy, particularly in areas like women's sports. Her framing appeals to those who prioritize traditional definitions of gender and feel that the inclusion of trans women undermines fairness in space specifically designed for biological females. Resonance with conservative audiences. Her refusal to, in quote, play pretend resonates with audiences skeptical of progressive takes on gender identity. By framing the issue as a deviation from reality, she taps into the concerns of individuals who feel alienated by what they perceive as left's overreach on social issues. I will identify there are a couple weaknesses and hypocrisies in Candace's stance. 1, a lack of compassion. Candace's approach is somewhat intentionally inflammatory, dismissing the struggles of trans individuals as Halloween costumes or mental illness. While mental health is a valid topic for discussion, her delivery comes across as demeaning, and it alienates anyone seeking a nuanced, empathetic debate. Another one, oversimplification of gender identity. Owens reduces a deeply complex issue to a binary, ignoring decades of medical and psychological research on gender dysphoria and the lived experiences of trans individuals, and inconsistency with conservative values. While advocating for traditional gender roles, she dismisses individual experiences and autonomy, contradicting the broader conservative principle of personal freedom. So, with all of this being said, the question is, where does Candace think we go from here? Let's check it out.
Secure the borders. I want him to get the illegals out of this country. We need to root out this corruption and truly go after the Department of Justice, because if they will do this to a sitting president, how safe does an American feel?
Candace delivers a bold critique of the Democratic Party, blending sarcasm, bold claims, and strategic soundbites. From calling out Kamala Harris to ripping apart celebrity activism and trans inclusion in women's sports, she hits on issues guaranteed to fire up her audience. However, her reliance on hyperbole and oversimplification leaves her arguments vulnerable to critique. So who's winning here? Candace owns the rhetoric battle, but whether her points hold water is another story. What do you think? Is she exposing hypocrisy or just stirring the pot? Check in again later for upcoming videos.